I've been waiting for this for a whole year. A whole year. How has it been a year? That's actually scary. Hello and welcome to this epic summerween reading vlog. I am so excited to dive into some good books because I've really been missing that lately. If you're not aware, Summerween is a readathon hosted by Gabby Reads, and the whole point is to kind of bring in the autumn Halloween aesthetic into the summertime, which I'm an autumn person, so I greatly appreciate this whole idea. And I thought I would theme it around a 24-hour readathon where I try and read as many scary books as I possibly can in a 24-hour period. Although I'm going to be doing the timer one because if I have any more late nights, I will unravel at the seams. Shall we go through the prompts? I think so. They're normally pretty flexible, but according to my list, we have read a book in the dark, read a thriller or horror book, read a book with a night sky on the cover, read a book with 5 words in the title, and read a book that takes place in the summer. Although judging by the outdoors, it's not seeming too summery today. I have a very loose to read pile that is extremely subject to change and way too ambitious. But I do have to read Sorrowland for the night sky prompt, although this edition doesn't actually have a night sky on the cover. It's this one. I'm counting it because it's the same book. And I have to read the reappearance of Rachel Price for the 5 word in the title prompt. I do have another one of these that I could use, but I'm saving that for another video, so this has to get read. I'm also a little bit nervous about the summer prompt because I don't know if any of the books here take place even just partly in the summer. So I have found a couple, like A House at the Bottom of the Lake and The Reformatory, so I may get to those. I kind of just hope that I can work with what I've already got. I would also quite like to get to Their Eyes Are the Best Part, which I have an e-copy of, and maybe I'll finish The It Girl by Ruth Ware because I am currently listening to that. But without further ado, let's get to reading. I have absolutely no idea what to read first. I need something that is fast-paced that I don't have to think about that much because I am losing the plot. I stayed up way too late last night and now I'm just like unsure of what's going on. I think I am just going to finish listening to The It Girl because I can just kind of curl up and not think about having to use my brain. Let me find my earphones wherever they've gone. Okay, timer is going to start now. Okay, first update. While I'm enjoying the book, I kind of feel like I could quite easily not like the way it ends because something is being set up that I really don't like, and it kind of feels like an obvious red herring, but obviously I don't know at this point. And if that happens, it is one of my least favorite thriller tropes, so obviously I will not be thrilled about that. But otherwise, I'm really enjoying it. You can tell that Ruth Ware is an accomplished thriller author. She knows how to write. It's not one of those thriller books that feels quite sparsely written. There are some good quotes in this, good metaphors without being excessive. It's still very easy to read. I like books that have good metaphors and good writing. I really just do. Anyway, I'm going to close the blinds because I'm going to try and do that prompt, which is read in the dark, but I'm going to do the read in the dark, but I'm going to do that as much as I possibly can during the day because as soon as it's night, I will be asleep. That's how it is. What? It was nothing. Although I do have a theory. If it's right though, it was not set up well. But it would explain things. So, we'll see. Well, technically speaking, I was wrong, but I predicted it before it became abundantly clear who the dodgy person was going to be. Because I think at the end of a thriller book, when a character gets offered a drink, you just know they're gonna get drunk. And I haven't even explained to you what this book is about. So we're following this woman called Hannah, and she gets into Oxford, and 10 years ago, her best friend is murdered. But the case reopens 10 years later when the guy that everyone thinks killed her dies in prison, and this journalist guy contacts her and says that he thinks that this guy, who everyone thinks killed her friend, is actually innocent. So then the story elapses and we are reliving these moments from the past. It's a fairly typical setup. Like, I always eat up the 10 years into the past storyline thrillers. I enjoy that trope. Also, it's vaguely dark academia. Not dark academia in a sense where that is what is mostly focused on, but there is a lot of talk about Oxford and university, even though obviously that's not what the main plot is about. I'm not too thrilled with the way that things pan out, because up until that point, had the ending been good, I was all set to give this book a 4, but I think it's going to end up being more like a 3/3.5, because although I had a good time reading it, the resolution just wasn't great. I also, at one point, I was convinced that it was going to follow the really common thriller trope that I just hate. It didn't do that, but the fact that I spent so much time thinking that it was going to do that, and then what actually happened... I do think Ruth Ware is a good writer, I just don't think this ended up going where it could have gone. Obviously my idea was wrong, but I think that if it had been set up better, then maybe it would have been a viable option, because it was actually questioned. What I thought could happen was questioned, but I felt like I was a couple steps ahead of the author quite a few times in this book, and I don't like that, because I want to be surprised, and I didn't get that. Before I end up talking about this book for 10 years, let's move on to the next thing. Good morning. I swear if my hair is messy, editing me is going to have a field day. I read for about 3 hours and 39 minutes yesterday, so while that's not terrible, it definitely puts me behind on my goal, but there was no way you were going to get me to read anything else yesterday. Anyway, today I really need to get on and do some reading in French, so I'm thinking about picking up Severance, but it's just not realistic to assume that I'm going to read an entire book in French that's like 300 and something pages long in 1 week. That just doesn't happen for me. I don't read that fast because I have to keep looking up vocabulary, and while this is fairly easy to read, I just don't see it. Otherwise, I could read my French graphic novel, and last year I read Nimona in French, and I really enjoyed that reading experience. I find reading graphic novels in French is a better way to get through them, because I can actually take my time and enjoy the art rather than just like racing through as I would do if they were written in English. I would also like to read How It Works Out, because although I'm not 100% sure this is actually a horror, the cover has a dismembered finger on the front, so that makes me think that it's at least a bit weird. It would also be nice to read some new release horror, because I don't think I've done that at all this year. I've maybe read like 1 or 2 new releases. Yeah, it has not been going well on that front. Here's the dismembered finger in all of its glory. This is the graphic novel in question, and it looks like it's going to be really weird. I mean, look at that person's hair. I've literally no idea when I'm going to get to this, but I'm certain I will at some point. From what I can ascertain, a mere 20 pages through this book, it seems to be like a kind of collection of short stories where scenarios in a relationship are imagined, because the first one, they find a baby in this alleyway. I expect this is going to be unhinged just based on that first story. I don't know what to think. Obviously I don't. I've read 20 pages. I feel like at this point this book could go in any direction, and I'm not sure if I'm okay with that or if I'm not. So I'll keep you updated.
Never been to California, never.
Okay, well, I see why there's a severed finger on the cover. This is so weird, I kind of love it. Final verdict. It was eh. Had all of the stories been like the second one, I would have given this at least a 4, but they were not. So I'm probably going to end up giving this like a 2.5, but rounded up to a 3, just for the good story alone. I thought it was reasonably well written the further you got into it, but I could tell this was a debut. I don't know what happened to all the good debuts, because like a year or a couple of years ago, I was reading some really good debut novels. What's happened? I found it quite hard on various different occasions to ascertain what some of the stories were trying to do, and while I don't necessarily want a book to spoon feed me what it's trying to say, I think it should still be clear. Not that every book has to say something, I at least need to know what you're trying to do, but it just wasn't clear. On the other hand though, there were some scenarios that were interesting to follow, but ultimately I just feel like this book reads of someone that is not 100% there yet with their craft. It was okay, I guess. I would love to read a full-length version of that second story, but aside from that, I don't really have much to say, and I'm just kind of a bit irritated. I'm reading my French graphic novel now. I think this is gonna be really weird, and I'm excited.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes! No way! Whoa! Okay. He looks really unhappy. His side just scored. That's a good goal. Penalty shootout. I mean, I said I wanted a penalty shootout, but not for this match. Any other match but this one. Oh my god. And England won on penalties. Who's a bit surprised? They always lose on penalties. We're doing okay. Not brilliantly, but okay. I don't really have much to update you on, but last night I started Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. I don't really know very much about what the story is going to entail, and I'm kind of happy about that. We're just following this woman who's left this cult-ish compound that was very isolated. She's just trying to survive in the woods, and that's kind of it. I don't know what to think so far. Although I am kind of enjoying it, I don't know. Hello. I'm unsure what to do about Their Eyes Are the Best Part, because although I technically have an e-copy of it, I really don't want to read an ebook. So do I buy it? That's the question. Because I don't have to. Is this a poor financial decision? Maybe. But I've got to go past my independent bookshop, so I'm going to have a quick look in and see if they've got it. And if they have, I think the universe is trying to tell me something. Well, my local bookshop did not come through, so I guess we're getting Ice Rain tonight, or whenever I decide to read it. But in other news, I tried to upload a YouTube video today, and the upload got cancelled. Because I didn't wait for it to process, even though it had technically finished uploading, and I'm just moderately annoyed about that. It's always annoying when things don't work out as planned, but I'm uploading it again. Okay, well, I finished Sorrowland. I have thoughts, as you might expect when you finish reading a book. I think this was reasonably good. I think it was probably like a 3.75. It's very slow and not conducive necessarily to read very, very fast, but I think if I had spent a long time reading this, I feel like I probably would have just like given up on it at some point, or I don't know. Not very much happens. There isn't a whole lot of plot. Like, our main character is just trying to survive, but there is a little dash of weirdness. I liked how the reader had to keep questioning whether what they were reading about was real or not. There were a few times where I was kind of tricked. I was thinking, yeah, this isn't really happening. Then it was really happening. So I think that was good. There were some weirder elements, but I feel like it needed to be more, and it needed to be more from the start, because there are hints of things, but I think it should have been explored a little bit more. It wasn't great by any means. I don't think I'm going to find this incredibly memorable, but I think I am going to round up to a 4, because from the 2/3 mark, I started enjoying it like a lot more. That couldn't quite counteract the sort of 3-star-ish feeling I was experiencing from about, I'm trying to work out, I don't think it was like right from the start, but there was quite a long period of this book when I was convinced that I was going to give this a 3, so I don't think I can give it anything higher than about a 3.75. It really reminded me of Lone Women. If you enjoyed that book, I think maybe you'll like this one, and vice versa, because I think I am just giving them the same rating. It was decent. It didn't blow me away, and I am slightly losing my will to read, but I think now I'm going to read the Holly Jackson one. I fancy something really, really fast-paced now after this one was extremely slow. Okay, so the reappearance of Rachel Price is about this girl called Belle, and her mother went missing, I think, 16 years ago, and now a documentary is being made about her disappearance. But during the filming of said documentary, Rachel Price shows up. So I assume it's going to be about what happened when she went missing, like why did she go missing? I don't know if there's going to be any murder involved, because it's a thriller, who knows. I hope this will grab me, because it is quite long, it's like 400 pages long, which is quite lengthy for a thriller. We will see. Okay, I'm about 150 pages into the reappearance of Rachel Price. I've just taken the dust jacket off because it's something I quite often do when I'm reading a hardback. I quite like it so far. It's certainly keeping me invested because we don't actually have confirmation on what happened to her. I mean, obviously that's the whole point of the book. She claims she was kidnapped, but Belle, our main character, is noticing slight discrepancies in her story. She keeps telling things slightly differently, which Belle is finding extremely suspicious. Like, for example, Rachel says that she's been missing for 15 years when really it's 16 years, and we can put that down to many different reasons, but Belle thinks she's lying. I must say, I think it's doing quite a good job at showing what it would be like if somebody went missing for quite a while. 16 years is quite a long time, and then just randomly turns up completely out of the blue, because Belle doesn't actually know her mother because she's 18 and her mother has been missing for the vast majority of her life, so she's kind of only really known her dad. And it's interesting seeing that dynamic because obviously they don't really know each other. It's all quite strange, and I feel like it's being done well. I've never mentioned this on my channel, but several years ago, before it became really popular, I read the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, and I quite liked that one. I do tend to not read many thriller books directed at teens because they're often extremely unrealistic. I mean, if you think a regular thriller book is a bit bonkers, when they're marketed for teenagers, they tend to be on a completely different level. But I actually found that trilogy to be very realistic in the way that it was covering the investigation and everything. And it's interesting reading a book by the same author in a completely different setting because, I mean, it has been a long time. It's just interesting when you don't read an author's work for a while that you quite enjoyed and then you just suddenly return to something else. I don't know, I will keep you posted, obviously, because that's the whole point. You want to know what I think about books. I need to go to sleep now, it's quite late. I have a personal appeal to authors, especially YA authors. You know, you don't have to put romance in every book. Anyway, I finished The Reappearance of Rachel Price, and it was okay. There was one good reveal at the end, but I didn't like the ending otherwise. I just thought it went to the part of thrillers that I don't like. I think it would have been more effective considering the documentary scenario if we'd got some more mixed media, maybe some transcripts, that sort of thing, like in the original Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. And sorry to compare, but Belle in this book, first of all, she's quite full on, and she felt like a third book Pip with all of her, like, accusations, because she keeps accusing people of things and saying, like, oh, you're lying, and I think Pip was a bit more strategic in the way she did that. So once again, it was kind of falling into that YA thriller stereotype in my mind. This book was trying to be a Good Girl's Guide to Murder so hard with a certain thing that was going on. I just thought, like, are you trying to recreate something, Holly Jackson? This is not the time and the place, I don't think. I think I'm gonna give this a 3 though, because it wasn't a bad reading experience. It was a bit long though, I must say. It was quite drawn out. I don't think the mystery was as good as it could have been, although maybe this just wasn't the right sort of story for me. I do have one question though. Do all 2024 releases suck? Or have I just been reading all the bad ones? Although I am currently reading Their Eyes Are the Best Part, and I do have somewhat good news because this is quite an interesting book so far. I mean, I am only about 70 pages in, so how much can I really say when this is like 300 pages long? We're following this girl who kind of gets a little bit obsessed with eyeballs. We're just starting to get into that territory, and I think it could be quite interesting when it gets to that point. I thought up until today that I was extremely desensitized to horror things, but when she was talking about eating eyeballs, I must say my cheeks did start creasing a bit. Not that much has happened so far, we're just being introduced to her family situation. Her dad has left, and her mum has met this guy, and he is an extreme red flag. Our main character and her family are Korean American, and this guy is white, but he keeps kind of like claiming that he knows things about Asian culture. I didn't like him as soon as he was introduced. So this is gonna be fun. I suppose that's a strength to the book, because if you can make me hate someone immediately, then you're quite good at writing, I guess. This graphic novel, Noctur Alchimique, is really weird. So the basic plot is we're following these two friends that go and visit their other friend who's kind of getting a bit involved in alchemy. But aside from that, there's really no plot. It's just 200 pages of really weird illustrations. Honestly, I have no idea what I would rate this. To the point where if you held me at gunpoint and said, "You've got to pick a rating for this book or I'll..." I think I would probably end up shot. That's quite an extreme image, but I think it demonstrates my point. I have no idea what I actually thought of this book. The art style was nice. It was weird. The illustrations were pretty disturbing. There's one page that's just covered with cockroaches on human beings. I just realised I may be a bit of a clown, because apparently The Eyes Are the Best Part isn't out until the 11th, and it is currently the 8th. So that'll explain why my local independent bookshop didn't have a copy. Whatever happens, this challenge must end today. In order to complete it, I need to read for 4 hours and 40 minutes, which is quite a lot. I have, however, finished The Eyes Are the Best Part, and I'm going to give it a 4. I think it's probably my favourite book that I've read for this video, although I haven't loved anything, which is really annoying considering how successful last year was on the whole. I think my main problem with this is that it ends very abruptly. It could have gone there a bit more than it did, but I still think it was good. Like, I would still recommend this. Then I started A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, and this is a sort of gothic, Victorian, Frankenstein-esque book, but with flowers and plants and things. It's quite good so far. I don't love it, but I think it's probably going to get around the same rating as The Eyes Are the Best Part, from what I can ascertain. I'm honestly happy I'm getting to the end of this challenge, because I realise why I haven't done this for almost a year. It's because it does nothing good for my reading. It trains me into like reading really fast, faster than I can really process, so I keep having to go back and reread things. I don't like this challenge. I'm realising I shouldn't have done it, but there we are. Oh, by the way, the first 150 pages takes place in the summer, so I can actually tick off the prompt legitimately. The final push. I don't know why I did this to myself. I don't know why I subject myself to a lot of the things I do. Well, this challenge is over. It did not go as well as planned, which is a shame. Let's recap what we read though. I finished this book, not during the time actually, I still had about 70 pages to go, which was a little surprising. I thought I'd be able to finish this. What did I think? I did quite like it, but it's kind of like along the same lines of Sorrowland, because this wasn't that horror-y. There were only like a few bits that I thought, okay, you could consider this horror, but aside from that, I wouldn't really call this a horror book. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I was so delirious when I was reading this that I missed something, but I don't think I did. I don't know what I would rate this. Maybe like a 3.5, 3.75, because it was pretty good, but it just didn't really go there as much as it needed to in order to get a better rating for me. But I'm probably gonna still rate it like a 4, even though technically it's more like a 3.5. If you tell me there's gonna be a Victorian setting, I'm already like slightly interested in the book. So that's A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock. Then we have Sorrowland, which I gave sort of around that kind of rating. I think this isn't going to be too memorable for me, but I had a reasonable time reading it. I'm not going to say it was bad. I think there were some interesting things explored and some interesting ideas that came out of this, so I would still recommend it. The Reappearance of Rachel Price was a pretty average thriller book. It was fine while I was reading it, but I'm probably never really going to think about it much again, which is a shame because I have really enjoyed this author in the past. There was only one good story, and how it works out out. In my mind, it really did feel like someone's first attempt at writing something, which, you know, isn't necessarily an insult, but in this case, it's an insult. I'm sorry. Hello, darkness, my old friend. We have this graphic novel, which I still don't really know what I think about it. It's just a lot of nice illustrations. And of course, I'm not going to forget about the It Girl, which would have been good had it stuck the landing, and the eyes are the best part, which is probably the best thing I read in this video, let's be honest. Although the ending was really abrupt. Really abrupt. I love books about unhinged people, and this, for the most part, did it for me. But that is the end of this video. I am realizing more and more now that I really need to reevaluate the books that I'm reading. I need to change some things up because it's obviously not working if I can't find a 5-star. In terms of this challenge, I don't think I will be doing this again. I might try the one where you stay up for 24 hours or thereabouts, or just see how much you can read within a 24-hour period. That sounds a little bit more fun because it seems like it'll be over fast. But at the same time, I've kind of caught up a bit on my reading goal, so that is a good thing. But otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed. If you participated in Summerween, let me know what your standout books were. Otherwise, I'll let you get on with the rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Hopefully. I'm literally never doing this again. Goodbye.